Welcome, Bridget. It's great to have you on the show today.
Great to be on the show, Juliet. Looking forward to our conversation.
So I'm going to read Bridget's bio, and it's one line, and then she's super awesome, but I'm going to let her tell you why it's only one line, because she has a very valid point about what she's doing here. So Bridgett McGowen Hawkins is an award-winning international professional speaker, author, publisher, and the owner of Press 49. So tell us, why one line? You had a really good reason.
Yes, I'm so glad that you found it to be a good reason. Listeners, I want you to think about the last time you attended any kind of conference, a breakout session, a keynote address, and the moderator or the facilitator or whatever you want to call that person who introduced the speaker. They read this long bio or they gave you this long intro. How much of that did you remember? And how many of you were sitting there thinking, yeah, blah, blah, blah. What does the person have to say? Right? Because you can go Google that person, which you likely did. And that's why you're sitting in the session. You can go check that person out on LinkedIn. I believe in bringing the goods right away. And my bio is not the goods. I want you to listen to the conversation that Juliet and I have and then say, oh, I really got to go check her out. Because you can talk about how you've done this and you've achieved this and you've won this. And that's lovely. But can you get the job done? So that's why I push all of that to the side. I want to give you what you came to get. And that's real content, real value that you can take and use. And then we can talk about me later.
I love that. And you know what? I was just thinking back, one of my very first podcasts, and I'm not going to mention his name, I literally got a 3-page bio. And he worked with a PR agent. That's how I met him. And I was literally like, what piece am I going to pull out of here? Because it would literally be like, okay, I'm reading the bio. Thank you so much for stopping by today. We've used all our time reading the bio.
Exactly. And it's kind of like a book, right? That book has to immediately hook you. You don't want the author spending a lot of time going down tributaries and around the bend and so on. You really want to immediately get something out of it. That's why the author's bio is typically at the end of the book, or it's in some different section, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, business, poetry, doesn't matter. They want to immediately give you something that's going to grab you. So what are we going to give our audience, our listeners, Juliet, that's going to grab them? What do you have for me?
Oh, so I met Bridget on the scams that Allie B put together. And I loved what she had to say. She was so direct and to the point about what are those things in publishing that you have to watch out for. And like me, you're a publisher and like the things that people sell out there are crazy and they don't help authors. So let's start with, what is the biggest scam you see out there?
Oh, I don't know that I could find a biggest one, but let me just start out with some of the biggest ones.
Okay.
One of them, I don't want to call it a scam either. I know the listeners are like, okay, Bridget, I don't know. Your credibility is dwindling here. Here's the deal. If you have a publisher, here's one of them, who promises you X number of copies of your book that will sell, you really want to stop and think twice, look in the other direction or raise an eyebrow. It should give you pause. No one can guarantee you how many copies of your book will sell. That goes for any publisher, any author. I'm not talking about, it's only the hybrid presses or only the indie presses like Juliet and like Bridget, Superbrand and Press 49. It's only those where they cannot promise you certain numbers. No publisher is able to promise or guarantee you a certain number of your books or a certain number of copies of your book will sell. So, if they tell you this big flashy number, just kind of slow your roll, pump the brakes, and give it some time and think about it. And speaking of time to think about it, if they're not willing to give you that time, if they pressure you and say, oh, well, this offer is only good for 24 hours, you kind of want to pause for a minute too, because not saying reputable companies don't have those clocks ticking. And yes, we all have those special deals or promotions that are through a certain period of time. But if they're telling you, you have to jump on this or the price quadruples in 48 hours, kind of be leery of that. And there's a number of others, but those are two of the bigger ones.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of I don't know if you remember the olden days of digital marketing where you would do a webinar and then they had the countdown and the bonuses disappeared. Like that's not how we sell books or book packages. And I think, what's funny about that, Bridget, is about 2 years ago, I think it was during COVID, I was on one of those 2-3 day things where they have different guest speakers. And I actually remember one of the people getting on, giving a presentation and doing that whole bonus and bonus disappearing. And all of us other speakers were texting each other going, what? What? Like that is so old school and so not working these days.
And we know how serious that is, the undertaking of writing a book and publishing a book. It's not something that should be rushed. You want to take your time with it because you've put a lot of work into this. So you want to tread lightly and carefully. Now, have we had instances where an author signs on with us and they need their book done fast? Yes. We're in the middle of that right now, Juliet. We're in the middle. Oh, are we in the middle of that right now?
Yeah.
So some publishers may make that exception, but we're still keeping a close eye on quality. And while we're moving efficiently, we're also making sure that we're putting out a product that both you and we at Press 49 can be proud of.
Yes, absolutely. And we've done the same. We actually had a biography of the USC band leader. We had to get out and books in our hand in 3 weeks to sell on the tailgates at USC, USC UCLA football game. So yeah, it happens, but still that's different than somebody trying to close you and saying today only. What that tells me when somebody tries to do that is they've got a cash flow problem.
Right. And not to I don't know, not to be shady and suggest that, shame on you for having cash flow problems or what have you. That's business. Business is up today and it's down tomorrow and it's a question mark on the third day, right? But it's just to say it really makes you look a little, desperate. So watch out for that. Watch out for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So other things to watch out for that you've seen, because you're like me, you've published several books, you really know what to look for out there. What are some other concerns that you've seen?
Right. So there's a number of things that I shared in that panel discussion with Allie and friends is how I'll describe it. And there are areas such as service, leadership and excellence, standards, integrity, professional development. You want to make sure that you're working with a publisher that believes in service, that believes in making sure they are client focused. Right. If you have a question, you will get an answer, or at least they will, if they don't know the answer, they'll find the answer for you. They're really there to make sure that this is a good experience for you. And that, like I like to tell our clients, that you are the boss and that you're going to be taken care of. So you want a publisher that is committed to service. You want to know that you can get and put in contact with some of their clients. If you're trying to decide, do you want to work with them or not? Are they okay with putting you in touch with some of their clients? And then you want to know what kind of support they'll offer you after your book is published. Is this just where they're going to, take your money, publish and run? Or is it an actual relationship? So, look out for the service piece. And then when it comes to leadership and excellence, find out, hey, are you going to do whatever I tell you to do because you said I'm the boss? Or are you going to make sure industry standards are in place? Are you going to make sure if someone looks at my book and someone looks at a book that's published by one of the big 5 publishers, they would not be able to tell the difference. Ask them, are you going to keep it real with me? Are you going to advise me on industry standards? Even before you sign on the dotted line, this is where we talk about that 24-hour clock ticking or 48-hour clock ticking. Ask, before I sign on the dotted line, may I see a sample of your work? And if you want a physical copy, it can take more than 24 or 48 hours to get it to them. Yeah, they can send you an e-copy of it, but you might want to see and feel the book. Check out the texture of the pages. What pound of paper do they use? Have they done full color books? What does that look like? So that's where what I'm talking about when it comes to leadership and excellence. And then standards. Do they maintain high standards? And do they work with every author or anyone who comes their way? You do not want that publisher. Now, let me be very clear. There are vanity presses, and let me be very, very clear. There's nothing wrong with vanity presses, but they are the types of presses that will essentially publish any and every one. And you want to be selective about the crowd you're with. You remember Mama told you to be careful with what birds flocking together and feathers and all that type of stuff. You know the cliche I'm looking for, right? So you want to be selective about the company you keep as an author. So ask them, do you accept any author who comes along? Vanity presses, that's another story. They publish you, you want to get published, you pay, they publish you. That's the end of the story. But ask about that. Find out, how do they deal with plagiarism? How do they stay on top of industry standards? And then ask them about integrity. That's the next piece. Ask, may I review the contract beforehand? May I have my attorney look at it? And I give people a couple of weeks, quite frankly, if they want. And then if they come back 2 weeks later and say, oh my goodness, I didn't get around to it. Okay, yeah, you can have another 2 weeks. I just like to stay on top of things. So I'll give that 2-week window or whatever. I'll give you all the time you want. And if there are changes you want to make to your contract within reason that we can mutually agree upon, I do.
Yeah, I do too.
Absolutely. And then with the integrity piece, find out, how do they handle issues? If there is a problem, ask them, you're like, what do you do? How do you handle stuff? I mean, is there an exit clause? Let's say we get into this contract and we get to working together, but things just aren't gelling for me. Is there a way for me to get out of the contract? And I have that included in mind. Also, look at inclusivity. You want to work with a publisher where their roster of authors, when you look at their roster of authors, you're able to see yourself somewhere amongst them, and or somewhere amongst the team members at the publishing company. So you should be able to look in either of those places and see diversity, see all shades, all sizes, all ages, and look at their titles. Unless they're niche and they only publish a certain type of content, and there are publishers that do that. There's nothing wrong with that. We only publish nonfiction. But if you're looking to do nonfiction, we publish business books, professional development books. Look and see what kinds of topics they have there. And then finally, see, do they engage in professional development? Do they go to conferences? Do they network? Do they attend masterminds? Do they spend time with you and I? We're both publishers. Do you spend time together getting ideas from other colleagues in the industry? How do you grow? And how do you make sure you're always in a position to give your authors the absolute best of you?
Yeah, that is a really important point. I think another one too is asking where they publish, how they publish, in a sense. I know we get a lot of calls from people who talk to Amazon white label companies, and that can be very limiting. And the quality, you mentioned the quality, the paper quality is not as good. I hear all the time that covers roll. So those are things too, I think, that are very important. Do you use, the big industry guys? Or do you use, Joe Blow down the street? So another really big thing as well. So you were a speaker before this.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit about that too, because
Yeah.
for Breakthrough Author Magazine in 2024, our whole theme is ditch the middleman, strategies for bypassing the distributor fees, because the distributors are taking so much now that authors aren't making a really good profit. So can you speak to that a little bit? Because that's how you started. I remember you told me the story about rushing and getting that book out for an event.
I still, Juliet, to this day, do not know how I did that in less than a month.
Yeah, I don't
Around
either.
March, yeah, it was about March 13th, 17th, somewhere around there of 2019, I was essentially got the green light that I was accepted to present at a conference. And I was asked if I had a book to sell in the bookstore where Oprah would also have her book because she was going to be presenting and did present at this conference. 14,000 people. And I'm telling you, Juliet, I don't know where it came from. I had never written and published a book before, but all of a sudden this light bulb goes off. And I said, I don't have a book right now, but I will in time for that conference. So it's like mid-March, and I finished the book about 42,000 words and published it on April 9th of 2019. So less than a month after that conference reaching out to me. Now, granted, I've been blogging for years on the topic that I was presenting on, so I just pulled the best of the best. But back to this distributor thing and how after the printer takes its cut and got to pay for paper and binding and glue and so on, then of course the distributor is going to take a percentage, and then you're left with whatever. And if you work with a publishing company, let's be just straight up here, if you work with a publishing company that retains royalties where they have to take their cut. So in terms of getting around the distributor taking money, it's kind of hard to get around it. I mean, one of the only ways you can get around it is where you do what I did initially, and that was I sold my books directly from my website or
Mhm.
at those conferences that I did and still do attend. Matter of fact, I just got in from a conference last night. So that is one of probably the best way where you're going to see your highest royalties, where you are selling them yourself. Now, of course, there's always a downside. There's always the other side of the coin. When you only sell your books on your website, or you only sell them at the conferences you attend or out of the trunk of your car or whatever, yes, you are positioning yourself to be able to recoup the bulk of the royalties. However, or all of the royalties, not the bulk,
Yeah.
all of the royalties, right? Because all you do is pay for the printing of the book. You buy
Right.
authorized copies from, be it KDP, Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, or buying them from Ingram Spark or whatever printer you use. Those tend to be the more popular ones. So you retain the profits from the sales. However, you're limiting your reach. So there
Mhm.
may be people not in your neighborhood, not in your circle, not in your network, not at those conferences you're attending, who want and need your message, but they don't know anything about it because it's not on Amazon.
Right.
Then we're back to square one of, well, the distributor is going to take a cut.
Right, right. But the other way that you just talked about too is you actually being there, selling the book, signing, getting to know that person. So I think you really have to review your priorities in that sense, because those people that you build a relationship more than likely will purchase from you. So that is the upside of doing that yourself too, especially with nonfiction, because a lot of times you don't recoup the money from book sales. You recoup it from what you sell next. So it can be a really big thing. So you went to this event, you got it done within a month, and then you sold a pretty tremendous amount of copies, didn't you?
So the book sells out. But here's the cool part, Juliet. I mean, I had never thought about being an author, and it makes no sense that I would not have thought about being an author, considering I had been a professional speaker or have been one since 2001. But the thing
Mhm.
is, the book went on to win an award the following year. It won was it a best indie book award? I think that's the one that it won. And I've had other books. That's why I'm kind of trying to figure out which one am I talking about right now. Which award did it win? So, yes. So it ends up selling out, ends up winning an award, and it was the catalyst to me launching the publishing company,
Mhm.
Press 49 later that year. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
when you figure out, and that it was sort of the same for me. I came from traditional publishing, and when I wrote my first fiction novel, I encountered a self-publishing company and just went, "Oh my gosh, this is horrendous." So it's about it was one of those that you said to watch out for. You hand off the manuscript and you never hear from them again until your awful product is in your hands.
So
So
wait a minute. Wait a minute. They didn't. So you gave them the manuscript, great, and they take off and they edit and typeset and everything. So they weren't communicating with you saying, "Hey, here are the edits. Let's do some reworking or whatever." And
nothing, nothing.
and
Nothing.
oh,
I had it professionally edited. I used Stephen King's first editor, and it was a little shocking because he wasn't someone who you sent the Word doc to and they edit and you go through and accept. I literally had to print the whole novel and send it to him, and he marked it up in a red pen, which, believe me, when you're an author and you get that red pen back, you're like, oh, I suck at this. But yes, so I handed it off to them. They literally, this was the part that killed me, was they gave me a bank of photos and said, choose three. And then they slapped them on it was the worst cover you'd ever seen in your life. They literally that, and they're one of the big guys. So that was the whole reason I started mine, is I thought, oh my gosh, I can do a better job than this. And it just didn't, the whole thing didn't resonate. And I could see, coming from traditional publishing, where they were marking up pieces along the way to get additional profit that as a self-publishing company, they really shouldn't have been entitled to. So it was an experience.
wow, wow, wow. That's all I can say. Now I'm thinking about Stephen King's editor. It made me think of two words: old school. I'm not
Oh
mad
yeah.
at him. I'm not mad at him. I used to teach. I don't know if I shared that with you. I used to teach for the
No.
Texas A&M University system, and I made it a point to never grade my students' papers in red. And now in red ink, now I'm telling my age. I'm telling off on myself because yeah, the face-to-face students, I also taught online for University of Phoenix, and so I wasn't grading by hand, but before joining UOP, I was with the A&M system, and students were physically turning in papers, and I would always make sure I bought like this rainbow of colors of ink, but never red. Would throw the red out because it's so dramatic.
It is traumatic. It's very traumatic. So, well, Bridgett, before we sign off here,
Yeah.
you and Allie B, I'm having you guys back. You haven't booked it yet. At the beginning of the year, you guys have a book that is a must read. And I have to tell you guys up front, I was one of the people who read part of it and did one of the endorsements. I thought it was a really, really good book. So tell us a little bit about that. Not the whole thing. We don't want to give the whole thing away because we don't want to leave Allie out of this conversation, but a little bit about what you guys are up to.
Let me tell you, Juliet, I love this book. Now, being a professional speaker and always talking about presentation skills, I've written books on that, and I love those books, but I really think I might like this one better. Everybody, the title of it is Brace Yourself. The title is Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One. And so we just lay out for you a lot of what we talked about in this conversation: what to avoid, what to watch out for, how to empower yourself, because we don't want to scare you, but the book empowers you to make the right choices about choosing your topic, about what kind of content to put in your book, how to create a winning title. What are the hallmarks of a great title? What's too long? What's long enough? And so on and so forth. We lay out the different publishing routes. Should you go self-publish? Do you go indie? Do you go hybrid, vanity, traditional? What's the difference amongst them? Do you need an agent? We even talk about, when does marketing for your book start? And what's the best marketing tool you could ever have? And this might be the best part: This is going to be worth the price of admission, everybody. We have a section in the book where we discuss how to make money off of your book without selling a single copy. Juliet
Yes.
kind of alluded to it earlier, and I wish I had it just exactly as she put it. It was about, it's not the sale of the book, it's the sale after the book. So there's a little tease for you in terms of what we talk about in that section. Because for me, when I wrote that book back in 2019, maybe I'll sell a few copies, but I really wanted what came with being a published author. That was what was important. The book was cool, and it's now in its second edition, and it's more fabulous than ever. But it was about what comes from being a published author. So all of that and more is in Do Not Write a Book Until You Read This One. Go to press49.com, pre-order your copy. You're going to love it.
Oh, there you go. She's got a pitch for it too. But seriously, you guys, we're going to have her and Allie B on together to go deep into that a little bit more, because it is really something you could do. And from my standpoint, all of that's important. But I think also too, understanding that you need a book developer to help you through this journey. The best books that come out, people used a book developer. They just didn't open up and start writing one day, because I think that's really where you get into the major mistakes with the book, because we all make the same mistakes when we don't use a developer. So Bridgett, besides sending them to your website, do you have anything else where people can find more about you? Did you just go to Press 49, or where do they go to find out more about you and what you do?
Sure. So, of course, Press 49 to learn all about our award-winning hybrid publishing company and how we can support you with achieving your dream of becoming a published author. But if you just want to know all about Bridgett, because that little shady introduction, that little shabby, raggedy introduction didn't do me justice, which that is no shade toward Juliet. I mean, she reached out, Bridgett, give me your bio. I wrote a one sentence, and I know she was like, this woman is tripping. So no shade toward Juliet. If you want to know all about me, please visit connectwithb.com, because I'm more than just a publisher and a pretty face. There's a lot more to the story, and I love to connect with you on social media. So all of my handles are there at connectwithb.com.
I love that. And she is more than just a pretty face, you guys. That's why I wanted more bio, because she is a very interesting lady. So Bridgett, thank you so much.
Thank you, Juliet. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we will talk soon when we get her and Allie B back.
Yes.